So I'm finally finished with The Last of Us 2, and I don't really see what people were so upset about. That's not to say that the game didn't have its issues, but where it had issues, I didn't see it to be something that was game breaking, something that would ruin my experience entirely, and it just wasn't that bad. I did look at a few reviews that were more so recent because I wanted to see people who actually played the game review the game instead of people who just watched the leaks. And I tried to zero in on just the negative reviews because I really wanted to see what people thought about this game enough to give it like a 1 star on whatever website they went on. And reading into some of the reviews I saw, one of the characters in the game, I'm not really going to say it right here, I'm going to have a spoiler part later on in the video, but right now I'm just going to say I didn't expect people to have seen this character in this light, and I didn't see it the entire time I was playing. I was really under the impression that it was something huge, something major, something that was so ground shaking that it would be the end of the world for all gaming. But no, a lot of it seemed to be focused on the fact that the game focuses on lesbian couples, focuses on different things with gender. It doesn't really focus on it that much though. Like, if you really think that this game is going to shove those ideas down your throat, you are very much wrong. It doesn't do that. If anything, I'll say it's nice to see that we have characters like that are represented in these types of games, and that's a very good thing, but I really don't think that they try to push the envelope and push their message too far to try and make you think something that you wouldn't otherwise think. But I will get to that in the spoiler part of the video because, to my knowledge, one of the characters in the game, I don't think they were really exposed or showed off before the game came out outside of the leaks. So just in case you didn't want to know about said character, I'm just not going to talk about that right now. But first, let's talk about some of the things that did bother me about the game personally. First off, the open world, quote unquote open world exploring, just trying to find different supplies and gear within the different buildings around you. Now, within my first, I want to say 3 or 4 hours of playing the game, they did open up this kind of open world area. If you played the game, you know what I'm talking about, where you're on horseback and you can roam around. You have a map that, oh man, that map is very annoying. I'm gonna be real with you. That is like one of the most annoying parts of the game to me. I'm actually happy that that was a very short-lived part of the game, because if they would have did that for the entirety of the game, I would have been a little bit pissed. But what do I mean about an open world, quote unquote? What I mean is that they have a lot more buildings that you can freely roam around and explore in, and you can find your gear and supplies, the things that you need to craft different items, different weapons. And there's even collectibles too. You can find trading cards, and you can find coins, you can find things in these buildings. But the problem is that the game doesn't really give you much of a directive of where you should go. There's no mini-map. There is a map that they give you in this one area, but it's literally just a physical map that you have to take out of your bag and look at. So what that means is you have to go into your inventory and take out the map and look at where you are on the map. You have to put that map back in your bag so you can walk around and see whatever places that you haven't been to before. But wait, the places on the map, the streets on the map, don't always correlate with the world around you, because hey, the map is from like 20 years ago and the terrain has completely changed. Instead of you saying, hey, I'm just going to take this street to go straight to this point and explore this building, not knowing if it's the right building I'm supposed to be in or not, the street doesn't exist. It's just grass. And yeah, that part of the game only lasts for about, I want to say 2 hours, depending on how much you want to explore that part. But going into further parts of the game, you have other buildings that you can explore as well. And I swear, one building that I didn't even think was a building I was supposed to go in, like it was a random building. I was just like, hey, let me just check out this building and see what's up in here. I found an item that was very crucial to the game. Very crucial. And I feel like if I didn't go in there, I would have been screwed. Like, I probably would have never found this ever again. And at that point, I was really kind of paranoid, and I was like, all right, let me try and check every single building to see what's in these buildings. And honestly, you don't have to do that. Depending on the difficulty that you play on, you don't really have to explore that much, because you might not even need all the gear, all the items you're gonna find, because I mean, I don't think the game is really that hard to begin with. I'm the type of person, I like to play my games on normal just because, I mean, I don't really care about the challenge, but I did hear people say that this game was particularly easy, so I just said screw it, I'll play it on hard mode. Played on hard, I died a few times, yeah, but the game wasn't really that difficult. So yeah, you can kind of just go bare bones. They give you options enough for you to be able to go bare bones throughout the game and not have to explore every nook and cranny. Again, it depends on your play style and the difficulty that you play on, because depending on your difficulty, they'll give you more or less items in the open world. And now that I think about it, there was actually a safe that I honestly didn't go into every single safe. Whenever I got a combination, I was like, maybe I'll go and find a safe, maybe not. But there was one safe that I decided to check out, and it had within it a fucking holster for a gun that I really needed, because I mean it's very important for this game. And I'm like, well, maybe it's a good thing that I check these things out. Maybe it's a good thing that I actually explore more, because I might miss out on stuff that's actually important. But again, the game doesn't give you much of a directive to tell you, hey, you should go here, you should explore here. And that's something that's really annoying, because I don't know where I'm supposed to go half the time. And yeah, eventually you do figure it out, you do just explore more, and then you find out, hey, I'm supposed to go in this place. But it is something that is really tedious and just annoying. Something else that was a little bit annoying about the game was the pacing and the backtracking. Without saying too much, that you do have to backtrack a bit through certain places, and you see certain places multiple times when you play this game, just do one playthrough. There's something more I would like to talk about with the pacing, but that's more so of a spoiler, so I'll try to cover that in the spoiler section of this video. But just know that the pacing isn't the best. It really could have been better, but I feel like sometimes they give you too much in one section or not enough in another section, and some sections really are just you scrounging around for materials and looking through buildings and not doing much of anything at all. Or on the other hand, it could be you getting into a bunch of fights back to back to back and running out of materials, and it's just not really the best pacing. And speaking of tedium, let's talk about the combat. Now, I don't really have too much of a problem with the combat in general, because it can be inventive. Honestly, it can be very brutal too, and that's a good thing to me. There are fights where you can take advantage of your surroundings, and not only your surroundings, but take advantage of the different people, quote unquote, that are around you. For example, and I've seen this many times on Twitter, people have done this, I've done it myself, honestly. You can take advantage of situations where you have people, real life people, like people that are alive, and clickers, and you can make the clickers and the people fight each other. You can actually make them go after each other. There were a few situations in the game, and again, it's not the most frequent thing, but there were a few situations where I came in contact with clickers and with real people, and I was literally just like, you know what, I don't feel like fighting these people. So I made a loud sound and made the clickers come out and attack the people. And the clickers ended up killing the people in both situations I tried out. And I have seen Twitter videos, I've seen one in particular where people are just grabbing actual people and they're drawing the clickers near them, and they're just letting the clickers eat their faces alive, and it's crazy. I haven't been able to do that myself, but yeah, the combat can be very inventive. But again, those things, to me at least, seem a little bit too far between, because I haven't had that happen more than about 4 times in the entirety of my gameplay. And when combat isn't inventive, when combat isn't something that's more interesting, when you don't have the materials that you need to make certain things or to go through with certain plans or ideas that you make during combat, it can be a bit of a hassle. And there have been times when I came into a section where I'm like, oh, are you serious? We have to fight. I'm really not ready for this. I really don't want to do this. And it's sometimes you feel like it's just the regular Naughty Dog thing where they give you a room of enemies and you just have to take them all out. And where at first I really thought that they were changing up the game on it, because they gave me options in the beginning. There were situations where there were enemy groups around me and I was like, damn, I gotta fight them, I gotta take them out. And they literally just walked past me. And there were like 2 people that I thought I had to kill, but they just walked past me and I didn't have to kill them. I just moved on. And And then I was like, okay, well, I guess I don't have to fight everybody. I don't have to kill everybody. But no, there are a lot of situations where you definitely do have to kill everyone in that room, and you have to clear that room. And then it's a mix of you either trying to sneak around everyone and take them out very slowly. In certain situations I come into, I literally just got out my shotgun and then killed everybody. Well, my shotgun along with different other items, because I only have like what, four shots in my shotgun. But moving back into some of the story parts of the game, without spoiling anything, I'm not going to really go too deep into detail about this, but the game does a good job of drawing connections between the protagonists and the antagonists. They do that sort of thing where they make you feel something for the enemy, they make you feel something for the villain, and whether or not it's the best thing, it's up to you to decide. Personally, I thought it was interesting, a little bit weird the way that it works out, but it is interesting to see a villain to just be more humanized in these games. Because if you have a villain that's just like, I'm gonna kill everybody in my way and I do not care who it is, that's a bad villain to me. I think that your villains have to be more nuanced. Your villains have to be something better than just, I wanna watch the world burn. And again, whether or not Naughty Dog did a good job of doing that with this villain, that's up to you. I think that it was a little bit weird though. And lastly, before I get into the spoilers, I will say that there are certain events that some people are really upset over with this game, but I felt personally like it was necessary in order to tell the story that's focused on the concept of loss, revenge, and acceptance. Now, I will be getting into that very soon in the spoiler part, but yeah, this game is pretty brutal at times. It doesn't really hold back, and the things that you want these characters to do, the things that you want to see these characters achieve, sometimes that just doesn't happen. I'll be real with you, if you want to play this game and you're expecting the best, happiest ending in the world, maybe you should lower your expectations. Just drawing connections from Last of Us 1, there are a lot of moments in Last of Us 1 where you see these characters and they really seem like they're evolving and they're turning into these brighter people because they look towards a better future. But in this game, there's not much to look forward to. There's just a lot of pain and death and struggling, and that's pretty much the game. But with that being said, I'm going to switch over to the spoiler part of the video. So this is now your warning. If you do not want to be spoiled about any of the later parts of the game, you can leave right about now. This is your warning. That's it. Alright y'all, let's talk about this one scene that happens very early in the game that a lot of people are very upset about. I do understand if you're upset about the death of Joel, but personally I think it was a necessary driving factor for everything in the game. I see tons of people pissed off about Joel being dead. I think that it was very brutal. Yeah, I think that Joel could have had more of a fighting chance in his death, yes, but at the same time, his death I didn't really think was that much of a surprise. This game isn't really about Joel. It's not about him at all. It's about the struggle of Ellie and what she's going through. And obviously, if Ellie's going to struggle, what is she going to struggle over? Obviously Joel. And one thing that I really love that the game gets into later on is the idea that what Joel did in Last of Us Part 1, his decisions really spilled over into what happens in Part 2. Joel saved Ellie in Part 1. He saved her life, and in doing so, he ruined the chances of them finding a cure and making a cure for the entire world. Joel made that tough decision, and we see that the antagonist, Abby, she was the one that was affected by this the most. Her father was the one that was supposed to be able to do that surgery on Ellie, the one that was supposed to be able to save the world, and well, he couldn't. And Abby is honestly pissed about it, not just because of the cure, it's just because, well, that was her father that Joel killed. What I like is that both Abby and Ellie are trying to do these things based on what happened to these father figures in their lives. And the entire game going forward is kind of a back and forth between these parallels that are drawn between both Abby and Ellie. Next off, seeing Abby as more of a villain was one of the better parts of the game to me. They could have had it where you just played as Ellie and you literally just fought against Abby and you didn't really look into who Abby was or what her motives were as a person, but it was very interesting just seeing Abby as a character. Abby is a human being, and them splitting up the story the way they did to make it so one half you play as Abby, one half you play as Ellie. Now, first off, I gotta say, the pacing was kind of off just because of that. I really feel like it would have been better if they would have split it up by the days. Because you have day 1, day 2, and day 3 in Seattle, I feel like they could have split up the gameplay between Ellie and Abby with the certain days rather than splitting it up. You play as Ellie throughout the entire game, like the half of the game, like 10 hours, and then you play as Abby for the next 10 hours. It's like, well, why didn't you just split it up a little bit better? Because I'll be real with you, when I got to the end of Ellie's story and I started playing as Abby, by the time I get to the end of Abby's story, I'm like on a completely different mindset. I'm not thinking the same way I was before, and I'm like, you know, I don't want to do this. I don't want to play as Abby trying to hunt down and kill Ellie, but at the same time, like, I don't remember everything about what Ellie was going through, because I mean, that was like 10 hours ago, man. So like, you're seeing this one person struggle for 10 hours and then you see another person struggle for another 10 hours, and it's like, well, if you just split it up just by the days, so we can see, hey, this was Ellie's day 1 in Seattle, so let's go to Abby's day 1 in Seattle. But at the same time, it is interesting to see what happened to each character, where they were at specific points in the game. Obviously, getting up to the part where Abby's friends get killed. You see a lot of the events that happened before that, and it really leads into what Abby's decision was in the end for, you know, her going off with Lev. But again, man, going into Abby and Lev's connection, I don't know, man. It just feels kind of weird. Like, she was a top Scar killer. And I know that Lev and his sister were the ones that saved Abby, but it's like, man, if you really were up here killing all these Scars, why are you choosing just these two to save? And actually, it reminds me, when I read through some of the reviews, right, I've seen people say that Abby is transgender. I don't know, maybe there's something that I missed, but I don't remember seeing anything about that throughout the game, and honestly, I didn't even think of that throughout the entire game. And if that is the case, if I just missed something, I'm sorry, but if that is the case, it would definitely lead into her connection with Lev being more important, because I mean, hey, Lev is also transgender. And I'll say it right here, some of the reviews that I saw definitely had an issue with playing as a transgender character in the game. I don't think that's a big issue. I don't care. I think it's more so of a good thing for people who are transgender to have someone who they can relate with in a game, but I don't necessarily care that I was playing as someone who may or may not have been transgender. I just don't care. But anyway, the good part about playing as both Abby and Ellie is that when you get to parts where they fight against one another, both in the theater and also on the beach in the last scene that we see in the game, it's kind of heart-wrenching, because you don't want to see either of these characters die, but you go through the struggle and you have to watch the two of them fight against one another, just basically trying to survive. And I really don't want to see either of them die, because I played as both of them. I know their struggles, I know their pain, and even though I knew that, hey, one of them's gotta die, right? You know, I thought that at least. I was feeling bad that, hey, one of them had to die. And yes, neither of them did die, and again, in some of the reviews I saw, that was one of the points of where people thought that Ellie's entire struggle was kind of pointless. At the end, Abby bit off Ellie's fingers, and she got away. Ellie just let her go. She could have killed her, but she didn't. But in a way, I saw it as Ellie breaking the cycle. Because hey, if Ellie ended up killing Abby, guess what would have happened to make a Last of Us Part 3 potentially? Lev would have been the character that was left behind, and Lev would have probably went after Ellie as a form of revenge. Because obviously the parallels that they draw is that Lev and Abby are kind of like Ellie and Joel from the first game. The game really brings up the concept of fighting for what's right and fighting for what's important to you, and really expands upon that with all the tough choices. And one thing that is very sad is that the game doesn't have a good ending for Ellie. She made her decision to go off and try and kill Abby one more time, even though Dina didn't want her to do so. And in doing so, she basically lost Dina. Dina wasn't there when she came back. Dina was gone. Dina was nowhere to be seen. And also with Ellie's fingers bit off, well, in the last scene, you also see Ellie try to play the guitar and she just can't. It's kind of sad. Ellie could have easily had the good ending. She could have been with Dina. She could have had that farm. She could have just been with her child, but she ended up losing everything. And the question is, was it really worth it? Was going after Abby that one last time really worth losing everything? Losing her family, losing the ability to play guitar? And in the end, it's the exact opposite of what Joel chose in the first game. Joel could have lost Ellie. He could have made the decision to just let them kill her. Let them make a cure and save the world. Joel would have been empty and he would have been without someone that he loved, but that would have been saving the world. And as we see through the game, that's what Ellie would have wanted. Ellie said that she wanted to be able to die right there on that table because she wanted to be able to save everyone. But at the same time, whereas she made that decision and that was her right answer, it's like she has to suffer now because she made the exact opposite decision that Joel made again in the beginning, where she could have had this perfect family. She had it all, but she just wanted to go after Abby one last time for revenge and ended up losing absolutely everything. It's a sad ending to a game, and I think that it is really different from what we've seen from many games. I know it might anger some, but hey, it's something that's different, something that's challenging, and I really think that is something good to say. But you know what, guys, this video has been way too long. I did not want to talk about this for such a long time, but I just wanted to get my opinions out there about The Last of Us Part 2. If you've watched up to this point, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for sticking around through my rambles. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter where we can continue the discussion. And that's it for now, so I'll see you guys in the next one.